How's it going, everyone? It's Harvey from Weather Sponge 1000, and in this video we're of course going to focus on potential tropical cyclone form which will develop into tropical storm Danielle within the next several hours, and we'll also talk about the possibility of tropical storm Earl developing in the main development region by next week. But before I begin, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather-related content. So as we begin, I'll take a look at the current water vapor imagery throughout the entire Atlantic, and there's two disturbances we're of course watching right now. Like I said, we're watching potential tropical cyclone form 4, which is currently in the southern Gulf of Mexico at this time, and we do see a lot more convection than we were seeing before once this was over the Yucatan Peninsula, as this was able to go over the warmer waters of the Gulf of Mexico and really get itself going. And along with the fact that it's in that very small area where the wind shear is very light, it was able to gain a lot of convection and momentum around the center circulation for this to have a potential of developing into tropical storm Danielle, a likely chance of developing into tropical storm Danielle. And of course we're taking a look at this disturbance right here, which has that possibility of developing into tropical storm Earl in the main development region. So first we're going to focus on the potential tropical storm Earl in the Atlantic, and if I were to continue to move forward, we see that over the next 5 days this currently has a low chance of developing, where we only have 48% chance of development within the next 48 hours, and then 20% chance within the next 5 days. But of course this could easily change as we head more and more into the future if the computer models were to detect that the chance could rise as it heads further westward, which is certainly a possibility. And when we're talking about a tropical wave moving through the main development region, it's always something to pay very close attention to. So don't let your guard down throughout the Caribbean or anywhere along the coast this hurricane season, because any tropical wave could easily regain its strength even if it doesn't have a good possibility of developing in the main development region. So this is definitely something we're going to need to watch over the next several days. Now take a look at what the computer models are saying. So while the GFS model is currently taking a tropical wave into the main development region and strengthening just a little bit as it does so, there's going to be two things that are going to inhibit it. For one thing is that it's going to be a little bit further northward, which would mean that it could encounter sea surface temperatures that are below 80 degrees, which would definitely inhibit enough convection for the pressure to be low enough along the surface for the wind speed and the rotation to increase along the surface for this to be considered a tropical storm. So definitely its location will be key in determining if this does have a good possibility of developing. It needs to be a little just south enough to where it'll move over sea surface temperatures that are above the 80-degree threshold. And another thing too, which I've been talking about over the past several weeks, probably for months now, is that there's still a high amount of stability right now throughout the a large portion of the North Atlantic, including the main development region, as we do see that just to the north and west of this old pressure system there's a lot of dry air. And while the GFS model does expect this storm to maintain its strength as it heads further westward due to its small circulation, there's only so much a small storm could handle before the dry air eventually overtakes it. And that's what we're seeing right now with the GFS model, where we do sort of see the storm, while it maintains its strength for quite a while for a surprising amount based on how much dry air is surrounding it, we do see that it never really strengthens into tropical storm status, as the dry air is just too much for this to handle. And of course it might deal with sea surface temperatures are a little bit cooler than 80 degrees, which would also limit the convection needed for this to enhance its wind speed. So definitely we're gonna need to pay close attention to how this dry air maneuvers itself over the next 5 days. And you're probably wondering, how about beyond the 5-day mark? Does this have a good possibility of redeveloping or strengthening after the 5-day mark? Well, at this point the GFS model isn't confident of that either. We still do see a lot of dry air, which would inhibit the amount of convection and create a temperature inversion along the mid-levels of the atmosphere. So we aren't seeing this strengthen even beyond the 5-day mark, but it's definitely always something to keep in mind, because we do see that plume of moisture right now throughout the Gulf throughout the Caribbean, and if it's able to enter an area where the moisture is able to overtake this dry air, then we could see some strengthening with this tropical wave. But as of right now, it doesn't seem extremely likely this will develop into Tropical Storm Earl, but that possibility still exists, and a lot could change within the next 5 days. So I'll make sure to keep you guys updated regarding any major changes of the forecast. And if I were to continue to move forward with the European model is also agreeing the same thing, that a dry air will be a little bit too much for this tropical wave to handle. But beyond the 5-day mark, or beyond this tropical wave, I should say, there is a concern that the next tropical wave could be the one that develops into Tropical Storm Earl if the first tropical wave doesn't come for fruition, because we do see that this tropical wave does strengthen quite a bit. Of course, we're still far out. There's still a lot of time to iron out the forecast, but it's at least something to keep in mind, especially since the GFS model also expects another tropical wave to move a little bit further southward and potentially be in an area where the dry air won't be as overpowering in this time around. So we're gonna need to take a look at this next tropical wave by next week as well. But for this disturbance now coming off the West African coast at this time, it doesn't seem likely that we're gonna see this develop based on the forecast right now, but that could change. We're just gonna need to wait and see how much stable air there will be throughout the main developed region. Now, I'm taking a look at what the ensemble members are saying for the GFS model at this time. We do see that a large portion of them want to take this towards the Caribbean, which and we do see some of them strengthen this next tropical wave quite a bit, down to tropical storm status. So there is still that possibility this could develop into a tropical storm, even though it's low. So it's at least something to be aware of, that we do have some spaghetti models wanting to take this at tropical storm status and not necessarily just kill it off. So we're gonna need to pay close attention to this over the next several days. Now, moving on to potential tropical cyclone 4 just off the Mexican coast at this time, we do see a lot more convection. Like I said, there is a decent amount of wind shear associated with this upper level low that's located just to the east of this storm. However, the wind shear is the strong upper level winds are just to the east enough to the point where this area of convection is able to avoid, or at least the main center circulation is able to avoid that strong wind shear. So as a result, it's able to organize itself within a small area. So at this point, it's pretty much inevitable this will develop into a tropical storm. The only thing that's really inhibiting it is the lack of rotation around center circulation and the lack of a small circulation, because the wind speed is there. We just need to see a little bit more rotation and a little bit more of a closed center circulation before we could make the conclusion that this is Tropical Storm Danielle. And this is expected to move northwestward, and tropical storm warnings are in fact issued for the southern Texas coast. So you need to pay close attention and be prepared for tropical storm-like conditions. Gusty winds and heavy rain should be the primary concern for you guys along the Mexican and Texas coastline. Now, if I were to show you guys a wind shear map, here's the stronger upper level winds I'm talking about. We do see that there's very strong upper level winds just to the east of it, but look at that small area where this disturbance is located, where the wind shear is just light enough to where it will be able to organize itself to become eventually likely Tropical Storm Danielle as it approaches the Mexican and Texas coast. Now, another thing I want to show you guys is a forecasted rainfall map. We do see that a ton of rainfall isn't expected over the next 24 hours, but any rainfall at this point is beneficial for Texas since you guys are under a severe drought. But expect anywhere between 1 to 3 inches of rain along the Texas coast, and we could see a lot of the thunderstorm activity embedded within this disturbance create the possibility of flash flooding. So you want to pay very close attention to that along the Texas coast. Now, Taking a look at the National Hurricane Center forecast at this time, the National Hurricane Center is expecting this to develop into tropical storm right before landfall, and pretty much most likely it will make landfall along the Mexican coastline. Maybe that extreme slight possibility is this takes an extremely northward track and makes landfall right around Brownsville, Texas, but that's unlikely at this point, as the most likely scenario is that this will make landfall along the southern Mexican coast. But you need to keep in mind that the northeastern portion of pretty much every tropical cyclone is the more powerful quadrant, and also the quadrant with the largest wind field. So as a result, Texas should still experience tropical storm-like conditions as this approaches the coast. So make sure to pay close attention to that over the next several hours, as it should make landfall somewhere right around Saturday afternoon into Saturday night. So you should experience tropical storm-like conditions throughout the duration of Saturday night and into very early on Sunday. So make sure to keep that in mind. And here's my overall forecast regarding Tropical Storm Danielle and Earl. Tropical Storm Earl is possible within the next 5 days. It's currently less likely, but there could be that possibility. The chance does increase. And Tropical Storm Danielle will also form likely within the next couple hours. So make sure to keep that in mind along the Texas and Mexican coast. But anyways, guys, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather content, and I hope you guys all have a great day.